Hi everyone, I'm Holly and welcome to Topics in Psychology, subtitle Psyche Image Symbol. First I'll introduce myself if you don't already know me. I have taught in the liberal arts department more for many years now. I started out as an English professor and a writing instructor, and I still do teach writing. But I teach lots of different electives, and this is a fairly new liberal arts elective that I got to design and create myself. And it's probably my favorite course to teach here at Moore because it's where my own passion and interest really lies currently. So recently I went back to school to become a therapist. So I have been studying psychology myself and particularly have been steeped in what is known as depth psychology, which is the type of psychology that we're going to be focusing on in this course. So, what is depth psychology? Well, you will get to learn the answer to that as you go through the first round of readings for this course. But I can give you a little bit of an introduction now. And one of the ways that I like to introduce the topic of depth psychology is through the concept of the image. And image and imagery is very important in depth psychology. And essentially, it's a gateway to the individual psyche and the collective psyche, all of us. And so what this course hopefully will make you understand or allow you to understand is how taking a symbolic attitude and using a creative approach can lead you to positive psychological change. One of the things that we will talk about is how this type of psychology is different from some more better known mainstream psychologies that are more scientific in nature. So depth psychology actually has more in common with art than it does with science. Although it did initially grow out of the discipline of psychology, back when it came about in the early 20th century with Freud. But the type that we're going to look at is really much more closely related to art. And the way that I would contrast depth psychology with other more scientific psychologies is that psychologies that are more based on science are more interested in the idea of symptoms, right? So if you have depression or if you have anxiety, your doctor would ask you, well, what are your symptoms, and you would tell them that. And the goal of that kind of therapy would be to eliminate these symptoms, or at least, reduce them, with the ultimate goal of eliminating them through a kind of scientific approach, in a combination maybe of using medication with some very directed, specific types of step-oriented therapy. And that can be, of course, very helpful. It helps people improve their everyday lives and, kind of get through the stressors that life throws at them. But the approach that depth psychology takes is quite different, actually. And the reason for that is it's more interested in a long-term, larger scale transformation for people. So a depth psychologist would ask you about your depression and your symptoms, and kind of, get curious about them, want to know more about them. So they might ask you, okay, so you have depression, what does it feel like? How does, what images come to mind when you try to describe your depression? That kind of thing. Because a depth psychologist sees your symptoms not just as negative factors to be gotten rid of, but actually as holding the key to self-growth and personal transformation. So we're going to, kind of get into the details of all that as we move throughout the course. But I also wanted to just restate the importance of image to this process. So Carl Jung, who is one of the psychologists we're going to study pretty closely in this class, he says in his autobiography, "To the extent that I managed to translate the emotions into images, that is to say, to find the images which were concealed in the emotion, I was inwardly calmed and reassured. Had I left those images hidden in the emotions, I might have been torn to pieces by them." So he really saw images as life-saving and life-giving. That obviously, you know, when we go through whatever mental disturbance we're going through, oftentimes, you know, very overwhelming emotions can surface. But he really thought that if you could take a creative approach and relate yourself to the images that these emotions are evoking, then that is, you know, really healing. And, you know, so we're going to start actually talking about images in this class. And so I've asked you for one of your first assignments to choose an image that is meaningful to you, that you feel represents you. And this could be a photograph. It could be a particular image of an animal that you find, you know, you feel connected to. It could be a character from a film or a book or a video game or whatever. But for this assignment that's going to be due this Sunday, you are going to write as if you were that image and introduce yourself that way. So we're also going to do a regular introduction where you can either submit a video or just write about yourself and just kind of introduce yourself in whatever way feels comfortable for you. But that's really the start of our course, is just kind of get to know each other. When I teach this class in person, you know, we would sit in a circle and we would go around and share those things about ourselves. But we're going to do it online. So that's what's due this coming Sunday, which is, I believe, the 23rd. So check the Moodle timeline. There are 2 separate forums, one for the regular introduction and one for providing your image and introducing yourself that way. And then the next assignment will be our first round of readings for this class, which, you know, is focused on this topic of what is depth psychology, and reading some different articles about this kind of approach to the psyche. So in general, the days to remember for your assignments for this class are going to be Thursdays and Sundays, okay? And normally what I will do is I'll give you a bunch of readings, I'll have you explore those readings, and then you'll choose one that particularly strikes you, and you'll write a 300-word post that just offers your reflection on the reading. It doesn't have to be terribly formal. They're more exploratory, and you can ask questions or you can talk about what it makes you think of, that kind of thing. But a 300-word post that's going to be due every Thursday. So there will be a forum each week, and you can respond to any of the readings. You get to choose which one that you want to respond to. So you'll post those Thursday, and then I'd like you to look through your classmates' posts and choose at least one to respond to by that Sunday. Okay, so original posts are due Thursday, and then the responses are going to be due Sunday. And then in addition to that, we will also be having a midterm exam, which is basically an essay that you're going to write, and then a final exam as well. And the final exam, actually, it's called an exam, but it's really more of a project. And both the midterm and the final are really, they're not so much just like question and answer oriented. They're more to show your application of the concepts that we learn throughout this class. And I want to say that, you know, some of this stuff can get pretty complicated. And, you know, what I think is really helpful is to learn some of these theories and concepts is, you know, what's helpful is to ground them in everyday life examples. And I like to do that through referring to different films and TV shows and books, and, you know, just examples from everyday life. So I encourage you all to relate this stuff to, you know, your own lives, to shows or films or video games or whatever that you are aware of as we move along, so that we can ground this material and really understand it. And of course, there is the section on Moodle for questions for the professor. So feel free to put any question out there to help you clarify both things about assignments as well as the content of what we're talking about. And so I will keep checking that forum and try to respond to your questions within a day or two. And there's also the student lounge aspect of Moodle. So that's a great place where you can share some of your related materials. Say like, oh, this reminds me of this TV show episode, and you can write about that in the student lounge, and you guys can chat about whatever the material is bringing up for you. So I really like that those features are here in our new Moodle course here. Let's see, what else do I want to say? I don't know. I think I've blathered on long enough, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all. So for your first assignment, you're going to do those introductions and post them in the Moodle timeline, and we'll go from there. And I hope that you are all navigating this crazy pandemic, and that you are all safe and healthy, and figuring out, your classes, which is a super weird time, I know, and did not expect to be teaching this class online, but here we are, and I'm looking forward to the journey with you all. Thank you very much. See you soon.